Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Kaba Ilco number 7185YA2 26D. This is a 1 1/8 mortise cylinder from Kaba Ilco. This would be considered a Yale, not considered, this is a Yale 8 keyway. Satin chrome, 1 1/8, a number 2 cam or an 863A cam, or just known as an Adams Wright style cam. So let's take a closer look at this cylinder and its keyway, etc., etc. Let's start with a review of the part number. So 7185 from Kaba Ilco means that this is an 1 1/8 long mortise cylinder. The length is measured from the underside of the head to the back of the cam. That's 1 1/8. That's how they measure these. That's how mortise cylinders are measured. Okay, 7185 is an 1 1/8 long mortise cylinder. Very common in lots of applications. You know, 1 1/8 would certainly work on typical aluminum storefront. If you're probably going to need a cylinder collar, mortise locks, it will work in common mortise locks. 1 1/4 would be a typical length for a mortise, especially an older mortise lock. 1 1/4 is pretty common. Ordering an 1 1/8 mortise cylinder, jumping ahead a little bit to this Adams Wright cam, tells me it's going to be used very likely in aluminum storefront. I would have expected to see maybe a 1-inch long cylinder, which is a 7165? Yeah, 7165. But nonetheless, they could also be ordering this because they're running 6-pin keys into these as well, and we'll get into what I mean by that when we look at this part number a little bit closer. So an 1 1/8 Adams Wright cam. Not the most common I would expect, but nonetheless. 7185, 1 1/8. Now the YA2, that's a reference to the keyway. This would be known as a Yale 8 or a 999. It might be known as well. This would be what a Yale 8 keyway would look like. It's highly paracentric, meaning the profile crosses the vertical axis center line several times. Okay, this is a 5-pin, is what it is. The cylinder is drilled 6 and pinned 5. Okay, round head to emulate Yale original look-alike type keys. This would be a nickel-silver key with a brass plating on it. Actually, no, I would say that this is just a brass key because there's no evidence of any silver occurring. Yeah, there's no evidence of any sort of different color after the cuts have been made to the key. Okay. And we'll dissect that keyway a little bit further when we get into the catalog. The 2 in the part number specifically refers to the cam or the tailpiece. That means Adams Wright. There are 3 cams for Adams Wright locks. There's 99.9% of all of them locks that would require the MS style, this Adams Wright cam. You could use a standard cam, and then there's the cam required, I think, for the 4070, don't quote me, or the 2331. It's a shorter version of a standard cam. The finish, 26D, that means satin chrome. That's a brass scalp plate that's there, and that's in a satin chrome finish. That scratched surface you see is just the peel-away protective plastic that's on there, is all that this is. Okay, will come with 2 original keys, and being made of solid brass, which it is, brass cylinder, brass plug, affords a very smooth fit and finish. It works very well. It works very smoothly. It's machined and manufactured to very tight tolerances, so that when you're pinning the lock, you need to pin that accurately. And because there's no slop, play, or margin inside between the housing and the shell and the cylinder plug, it's going to work really, really well for many, many years, is the bottom line. Great quality lock. Now, let's click on the link below this video to the manufacturer's page, and what we'll do is we'll switch to the screen view to take up this video further with supporting documents. So this is the item that we're looking at here. 1/8" 5-pin mortise cylinder, Yale 8 keyway, 6-pin drilled with 863A. 6-pin drilled, we'll talk about that in a second. 863A is a reference to the cam, which is the number 2 in this part number. And if we took a look at .863A, that's the cam alone. Okay. Now, what I'd like to do is pull up the manufacturer's page here, and that's going to allow us to pull up the key blank catalog along with the brass cylinder manual. Let's start with the brass cylinder manual catalog. And our cylinders are going to start at about page 6. And the 7185, I had said earlier, maybe somebody wants it because they're running 6-pin key blanks. Well, that would be a 7185 is an 1/8" mortise cylinder that is pinned to a 5-pin key, but it's drilled 6-pin. Okay, so that would give you the ability to pass a 6-pin key blank certainly into the 7185. It will fit because of the length, but in case there needs to be a 6-pin blank that or key that works that cylinder, you'll have the ability, because it's already drilled, to do so. Okay, a 7186 will give you an 1/8" cylinder with a 6-pin key. So if you know that you're going to be doing 6-pin, I would encourage you just to purchase the 7186 because it will give you that 6-pin length key blank. Well, key as well. Now the YA, that refers to down here our Yale 8. That shows us the broaching section. That's as if you're looking down into the cylinder and not at the end of the key. So if you're looking at the tip of the key, in your mind's eye you'll have to flip that over because that's when you're looking down into the cylinder. The Yale 8 is the Kaba Ilco code YA, and that will use their easy number 999. Now, Kaba Ilco has, you know, these 25 plus additional different keyways that they'll do in their cylinders. Okay, they've got a Yale GA, a Yale 8. On page 20 of this catalog, there is the code of all of those. There's a chart of all of those codes, and that will show you Ilco, Ilco 5-pin, 6-pin, will give you the part number for their key blanks. It's a 999 key blank in a 5-pin, and it's a 999A in a 6-pin. Their easy code, Ilco Easy, is just Y1, Y2 for the 6-pin. But that's handy because if you're doing a Kaba Ilco cylinder, this chart is handy. Because if you're doing a Kaba Ilco cylinder and you just need to know, okay, I'm going to do some of these Corbin 59s, the code is CD. Well, what's the key blank? Well, here it is, 1001AH. That's why that's important. So we can then get to the key blank catalog and open that up, and that will allow us to get to the 999. I happen to, if we're going to search for 999, it'll show up a number of times. In fact, it will show up a couple of hundred times. I happen to know it's on, it's certainly in section 2, but I believe it's a little bit further down. Yeah, it's on page 77 of this current catalog. So that's going to be your key blank. And what they're doing here is they're showing you this key blank. In a 4-pin, it's going to be a 999B. and a 5-pin, it'll be a 999, and a 6-pin, a 999A. Y1, Y2. Now a 4-pin, that's, you could definitely expect to see that in peanut cylinders that Yale very certainly manufactured decades ago. A peanut cylinder would have been a 3/4-inch diameter cylinder that would have worked in a variety of unusually small type locks, and it was used early on in aluminum storefront doors as well with particular locks. And that the point of that is it took a 4-pin key blank, that I know. So that would be your key blank. And this document is incredibly useful because it will show you all of the Yale key blanks from Kaba Ilco. There are pages worth of it. In section 2 is the North American cylinder section, and if you simply get down to, you know, Yale, it's alphabetical. You'll see all of the possibilities of Yale key blanks, and it's helpful because you can look at the cross section of a key. Now Yale would be pretty tough because there are so many of them, but when you're looking at this cross section, again, looking down into the cylinder, if you're looking to determine or help figure out what key blank you have, this document is very handy. And while it won't always, certainly it won't always allow you to identify the key that you have, because Kaba Ilco may just not make it, it will at a minimum permit you to determine certainly what it's not, because you can look at the broaching in the cylinder and immediately know, you know, whether or not that looks like it'll work or not. So this is a great catalog. It's also a reference in the back in terms of cross-section information. That's here. You can cross the Yale, you know, if we're doing a 6-pin key blank, the 999A, you can cross-reference this in the back of the catalog between many different manufacturers. Ilco to Dominion key blanks, to Curtis key blanks, Taylor, Jet, Silica, etc. So it's a great cross-reference. If you wanted to know the Jet number for the 999A or B, well, here they are. That's the Jet part number. So a very handy document in that regard. Back to the cylinder manual. We are looking at the, we've talked about the size of the cylinder, a YA, the tail piece. Let's look at the cam, the finish, and the keying, because that's all on the second page. The cams are listed here. They've got 15 or 20 different cams. So that single or double or 2-digit number will define the cam. If you're doing, you know, an old mortise lock, you might just want a standard cam. Or if you're running it, if you're putting a Yale 8 keyway or a 999 Ilco EZ into a Schlage L-Series mortise lock, you're going to need it to be YA15, because that will be your cam for Schlage. Marks is not uncommon to bump into. Okay, if you are running this into a Yale small mortise deadbolt in a typical 4 3/4-inch tall size or so, you might need that cam. If you're doing the Kaba Ilco line of deadbolts, this fantail cam would be the typical one to use, etc. There's that other short stubby cam for the other Adams Wright, the 4070, the 863T. That's certainly a Falcon cam there as well for their mortise locks. Finishes, we're doing 26D satin chrome. They've got a dozen or so finishes available. Certainly not all of them are in stock, but nonetheless, they can be ordered. Your common finishes certainly will be polished brass, satin brass, oil rub bronze or Duracolor brown, possibly black, satin chrome. Okay. In terms of keying, the factory can key the material most certainly, as can we. If you have need for any sort of particular keying, reach out to us. We will be happy to oblige the requirements in that regard. Let's finish up this video on camera. As I had said earlier, it's a very, very high quality item. There's a confluence of advantages with Kaba Ilco cylinders. First of all, very high quality. They work smoothly, dependable, reliable performance you'll get out of this. Also, great pricing. I look to Kaba Ilco in all instances when I can. I'll use a Kaba Ilco cylinder. The limitations would be that they just don't have the keyway that you need, and that's certainly possible. You know, even with 24 keyways, there's tens of thousands of keyways that are technically possible that you could get into. Yale has, as you saw, you know, the history of Yale, a company that goes back to 1849. The inventor of the modern pin tumbler cylinder, Linus Yale Jr., literally invented a cylinder that was very similar to this, and its operating principle, in fact, is identical to this type of cylinder. Another thing that I like about their cylinders is that they are pleasant to work on. They come apart easy, they fit together nice. When you pin them, they work really well. I'm also partial to their technical service department. There is a particular gentleman there who is in charge of cylinders, who tolerates my many and often technical questions, so I say thank you to that gentleman. Any questions on the Kaba Ilco 7185 in a YA2 26D finish, or any other Kaba Ilco product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.